Alright, y'all, I am going to go right into the January 2023 tier list. I'm re-recording this video because the ban list dropped like an hour after I recorded this, and there are some impactful changes. So we're going to get into everything as it is before the ban list on January 10th and then after. So, pre-ban list, in your A tier, we got Branded. I'm putting Branded in A tier because Branded is just still incredibly resilient. It has a decent runic matchup. I know a lot of people that play Branded are going to say, oh, it's playing against runic is hard, it's annoying. Yes, it is annoying, it is difficult, but the deck can definitely get through. And if you go first and you manage to establish the tax collector dragon and you keep him on board, runic players are going to like kind of cry. I personally hate having to out that thing, and I hate if my opponents are running more than one. If you're playing Branded, I would definitely be running a second copy. The trap card that they got that lets them fuse on your turn to make another tax collector dragon, also really annoying against runic. And I still think it has a very good and very fair matchup against all the decks below it, which is why I'm putting it in A tier. And then, of course, we have Despia right next to it, because Branded Despia, in my opinion, is the best version of Branded. And in addition to it being very strong, you also have some of the cards that, when they're banished, have effects activate, like Alubar and... Or is it Alubar? It's whatever the like little one is, the gesture one. Whenever he's banished, you get to add a card. And so Runic banishes him off of one of their spells. Even if you're going second, you at least still get to add like a Branded fusion to your hand, basically. So very, very decent matchup. Next we have Runic. I'm actually putting Runic ahead of Sword Soul and the rest of the decks in A tier, not just because it's powerful, but because the amount of representation you're seeing. I'm seeing so many Runic decks, and I like Runic. I'm actually playing Runic spellbooks. But, and it's a small but, Runic, just the sheer amount of representation it's getting is great. I do think that it's maybe not the strongest deck in A tier, which is why I have Branded ahead of it, and you could even make the argument to put like Sword Soul ahead of it, because I have lost to Sword Soul a couple of times playing Runic, and Sword Soul has a decent matchup. You can even do Runic Sword Soul. There should be a video about that up on my channel. But as far as Runic goes, I think just based on representation and the fact that if you know the deck inside and out and you know all your plays for it, it can be really formidable. It deserves to be in that kind of upper A tier. Next we have Sword Soul. So Sword Soul, like pure Sword Soul variant, or Runic Sword Soul, I'm definitely putting up near the top of A tier, because the deck has not lost like anything. The deck is still great. Like the deck is still absolutely fantastic, and will continue being fantastic, and is pretty much untouched by the ban list. Next we have Emancipator. And so Emancipator before the ban list kind of looks like this, with Block Dragon being at 3. It's a powerhouse. With Block Dragon going to 1, I'm going to put it down maybe 1, maybe 2 more ranks, because not because it's really the Block Dragon hit's that impactful, but because the Block Dragon hit is probably going to hurt representation for the deck, and you might not see it as much. But honestly, even with the Block Dragon hit, I think that this deck still belongs in A tier. I think it's a powerhouse, and that's mainly because of the Grass Looks Greener Xeno Rock Guitar variant of the deck. Rock Guitar being able to just bring stuff back and cycle cards and all that good shit. It's really good, and Grass being in Master Duel is really good for the deck. So I definitely feel like it deserves to be an A tier. I feel like if representation doesn't sink too much, it'll be more like this. If we do lose a lot of representation, it'll be more like this. But That's going to go ahead and bring us to our next two, Dragon Link and Adagnister. Dragon Link's pretty much unscathed by the ban list. It's pretty much untouched. It's in a really good spot, I feel, this format. I do feel like the Runic matchup can be kind of iffy, but if you go first and you make the negate board, you're pretty solid. If you go second, you might have some finagling to play around. If they banish too many of your combo pieces, you might just be out of the game. But that's just kind of how it is in a best of one format. But I do feel like this deck has a very good matchup against pretty much everything in the A tier and the B tier below it. You mainly do want to go first with this deck. If you go second, you're just going to be having kind of a bad time. But I do feel like it deserves its spot at A tier at this point in time. Depending on how the meta shifts, it might move downward. I definitely don't think it's going to move upwards, but I do think it's powerhouse right now in the current meta. And then next we have Adagnister. This is the sleeper hit of the A tier, I feel. So Adagnister having that huge 5,000 attack monster that is untargetable and can basically just like look at Runic and laugh, or look at, because it's unaffected by things, it's not untargetable, it's unaffected. Can look at Branded and laugh and just say, okay, you can't blow me up, you can't beat over me, what are you going to do? It's very good. I think the only thing it really needs to fear is the giant monster in Sword Soul, because it can actually beat over it. So that's a thing. You do have to banish a lot for that, though. But if they establish that huge monster, just the huge Adagnister monster, the Link 5, I think it is, 4 or 5, the big one, it's really hard to out. And I feel like being able to do that and being able to do that consistently is why the deck is as high up as it is on the list. And so next we're going to have Tenyi Sword Soul. I'm using the Tenyi image as kind of like a placeholder, but Tenyi Sword Soul, actually I think it could be even farther back here. Tenyi Sword Soul is really hurting because the Runic matchup just can absolutely destroy it if Runic goes first. Even if Runic goes second, if you out the board, which isn't too hard to do with Runic, if you out the board and start banishing their combo pieces, they're just going to have a bad time. And it could be pretty difficult to come back from. Like, I've had a game where I needed to have the Dark One, Vishuddha, and they just banished all my copies off of it. And I'm like, well, ripperoni. Next we have Zutri. Zutri is fine. Being able to pop the field spell or pop your opponent's branded monsters during their turn is pretty great. Branded is losing... Yeah, it's losing the Searcher. I was just looking at my notes real quick. It's losing the Searcher. The Searcher going to 2 really isn't going to hurt the deck very much. I mean, they still have 2 copies of the Searcher. They still have 2 copies of... Opening. So Branded's fine. It's just losing a tiny bit of consistency, but I still think it's going to be the highest deck in A tier. But anyway, back to Zutri. Zutri, decent options, pretty resilient. Even if your opponent banishes a bunch of shit from your main deck with Runic, you still got all your extra deck package, you still got your extra deck combos you can do. Zutri, definitely best variant of Tri-Brigade still in my opinion. And then regular Tri-Brigade, not far behind. And then I would say Tenyi Sword Soul rounding out A tier. So that's going to take us to B, and that's going to be in line now with our post-ban list changes. And in B, we are going to start off B tier with Marinsis. And the reason Marinsis is our king of B tier is because it has a lot of negates. It basically makes a negate board off only having one monster. If you manage to out that one monster, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. But if they go first, because this is the best of one format, if they go first and they establish board, you're going to have a hard time playing them out of that board. I feel like the decks above it can make better negate boards or are more consistent. But I do feel like if Marincess establishes that board, you're in a lot of trouble. So much so where I'm actually going to take it up out of B tier. This might be a little controversial for some of you guys, but I'm going to put it in the ass into A tier. And we're going to have D remain as the king of B tier. And that's because this deck, with the right pilot and somebody who's really committed to running the deck, D can do all kinds of D things. It will make crazy negate boards. It can make boards that are pretty much as consistent as the ones above it. I'm going to move myself down so you can see that easier. Oops, I didn't move the overlay. I am a big old idiot. There we go. But I feel like this deck is great. I always praise it pretty much every time I do the tier list. I really need to just make a deck profile for it already, but we're going to go ahead and move on. You guys have heard me give the D speech a million times before. So next up in B tier, we got the return of Drytron Herald. And why am I putting this so high in B tier? Well, it is because when this deck goes first, you're going to hear that a lot because it's best of one format. When this deck goes first and it establishes board, things like Runic are going to have a hard time playing out of it. I can have, let's just say, my 6 cards in hands with Runic. If they have their 6 cards in hands with Herald, they can negate every one of them. Herald is just really good against that deck. And if it goes first, it can definitely also establish a win against pretty much everything above it in A tier. The reason why I'm putting it in B is I feel it's a little less consistent, and it is kind of easy to hand trap if you can stop the combo and stop the Herald from coming out, whether you're going second or first. That crumbles and falls apart because that's its choke point. So I feel like putting it in B tier pretty solid. Next we have Prank Kids. If it's Emancipator Prank Kids, it would be up in A, kind of next to where Emancipator is. If it's just regular Prank Kids, down in B. Still consistent, less consistent, has a bad Runic matchup. So next we have Sky Strikers, and I'm actually going to leave them right here. I know they just got another Kagari back, but I don't think that's going to be enough to really push the deck up anymore. I feel like Runic Sky Striker is a fun variant. Even though you can't attack, you can just kind of cycle. Same logic behind Spellbook Runic, but I think it's a little worse than Spellbook Runic, personally. But Striker, solid B tier, beats everything below it pretty handily. Everything above it, it can beat, but it might have a little bit of trouble with. But, you know, there's definitely been times where I've lost to Sky Strikers while playing Branded before. The deck is just decent, has a lot of options, has a lot of consistency, so solid B tier. Next we have Thunder Dragons. So Thunder Dragons I am actually going to go ahead and just put up here because Thunder Dragons have a terrific Runic matchup. Like, if I play against Thunder Dragons with Runics and I banish them from the top of the deck and all I do is end up activating their effects, really annoying. Thunder Dragons also don't have the worst Branded matchup. If they go first and they make it to where you can only add cards to your hand by drawing them because of the fusion, a lot of the decks above it will have issues. So I feel like Thunder Dragons are a good solid B tier pick. Next we have Dinosaurs, particularly the Negate board Dinosaurs. Still solid, still in B tier. And then after that we have Live Twin. I'm putting them up so high because they do have a pretty decent matchup with everything above it and everything below it. It pretty much is just the matchup, and smart Live Twin players can do pretty crazy things with the Sunny and the Sunny combo to where you just tag in, tag out, and just do Live Twin things. Next we have Umi Control. So Umi Control is going to be down here because Umi Control has kind of a terrible matchup against Runic because Runic doesn't need to summon anything. And with it being so prevalent, Umi Control is just going to have a hard time. I feel like the deck has some consistency issues. I feel like some of the new support helps a little bit that we just got in the new selection pack. But I do feel like the deck does just kind of suffer and is kind of difficult to play in this format. It's definitely not bad. Last format I did get diamond with it, but in its current form I feel like it's just a little too inconsistent. I'm actually going to move it down. I'm actually going to put it below Numeron but ahead of Endymion, and I'll get to why in a little bit. So next we have Flow. So Flow got nerfed because Statue was hit. That's pretty much it. The deck's still annoying. The deck can still tribute your cards. The deck can still do interactions on your turn. The deck mainly is just Apex Avian, Impen, and Mega Ryza spam. But it's not bad. You know, you're going to see it on the ladder. I see it in Diamond all the time. I definitely feel like it's a solid B tier deck. I haven't seen enough to really rank it much higher, and I've played like hundreds and hundreds of games already this season, and also based on the Duelist Cup results, there were a lot of Flunderies decks, so I feel like it does deserve to be in B tier. Maybe more like this, maybe in like middle of B tier. I do see it represent more than Dinosaurs. I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to move Dinosaurs down because realistically I don't see them represented much. The deck combo is still there, but if I'm not seeing it played in Diamond very much, it's not too impactful for the meta. I did see a lot in Plat, but Plat has a lot of weird decks in it. So next we're going to move on to Numeron. It's Numeron, comes out of left field, does this Numeron FTK thing. Doesn't have the best runic matchup because you can easily destroy the field spell, you can negate stuff, you can stall out with the runic beast and destroy their monsters. So that's why I kind of feel like it is a little bit lower than it normally would be. We covered those. Next we have Endymion. So Endymion's fine. It's doing Endymion things. It's not super duper impactful right now, and I still think it's kind of easied out. I did finally lose to it on the ladder once. I'm actually going to take Pendulum, and I'm going to move Pendulum way back because they're losing the FTK. So Scareclaw, I'm also going to move way back because they haven't been as impactful as I thought they would be. Played against one last night with Runic, also played against them when I was using Branded. Pretty easily beat them. I've had trouble against them with other decks, but they weren't as meta relevant as Branded or Runic, so I'm going to move them way back. I do feel like Scareclaw will eventually have a place in the meta though. Next we're going to have generic zombies. So Zombie World's a powerful card. Zombie World basically making everything into zombies hurts this. It hurts anything that is locked into a type. Doesn't hurt Runic that bad. If they are running Doom King, Doom King can disrupt Runic, which is pretty good. It also makes Emancipators zombies instead of rocks, so there's that. It's decent. The fact that you can't tribute cards really, unless for like a zombie monster, really hurts flow. Like Zombie World's basically an auto win button. For that reason, and with how disruptive the Floodgate version of zombies is, I am going to put it in B. I'm going to move it back a little bit. And I'm actually going to have the controversial take of putting VW down there. So we're going to go ahead and go through. We've done that. We've covered all that. Salad's good. It does salad things. It's a little slow. That's why it's down there. Have I covered everything on the ban list yet? No, I haven't. Pot of Duality going to 2, I don't think hurts Flow or some of the decks that run it because I only ran 2 copies anyway because I felt like 3 was the brick. And then last but not least in B tier, we have Menju. Why do we have Menju in B tier? That is because you're going to see a lot of banishing happening, and this card is very good against banishing. When I play against Menju with Runic, I'm a little scared because this is a normal summon, so you can't really pop it with the destroy special summon cards. You can negate the effect, make it 0, but most of the time you won't have a battle phase, so that doesn't matter. And the more you banish your opponent's cards trying to deck them out, the scarier this becomes. The deck has always been one of those left field decks where it comes out and says, normal summon, here's my 8,000 attack monster, what you gonna do about it? And if we can have Numeron in B tier, we can have Menju in B tier. And then in C tier, we are going to go ahead and start it off with Virtual World. This deck just keeps taking L's. It pretty much has fallen off in representation almost completely. I do see it occasionally in Diamond. I have almost no problem playing against it with any of the decks in B or A tier. It's seen better days. It's kind of just fallen off and is in a difficult spot at this point. Not completely a lost cause, but definitely C tier for sure. Next we have Dynamorphia. The deck's not great. It can do dinosaur things. It can do crazy shenanigans. Skill Drain not being at 3 hurts the deck a little bit, but it's not terrible, and it just got more support, so C tier. Next we have Going Second Crusadia. You're not going to see it much. If you do see it, just realize that you don't want them to field the big monster because that will basically destroy your day. It's in C tier because unlike Numeron and unlike Menju, it is way easier to hand trap and can fall apart to affect negations much easier, or just disrupting your opponent from doing the combo to get to the big guy. Next we have Kaiju Luna, Master of Beast Spam. C tier. It's not bad, not great in this current meta, but it's not bad. Phantom Knights. Terrible runic matchup. Everything above it has a pretty easy time with it. It lost most of the adventure engine. The adventure engine just kind of took a hit, so it's really in a rough spot right now. So C tier. Orchist, C tier, too slow, terrible runic matchup. Dragon Maids, C tier, too slow, okay-ish runic matchup, okay-ish matchup with some of the decks above it, but also a really bad matchup with some of the decks above it. So C tier. Adventure Engine, you'll occasionally see it pop up and it'll be used in other decks. Adventure, like just being adventure.deck by itself, not really what it used to be. Lost a lot of its cards. C tier. Modolce, C tier. That's all I'm going to say. A lot of people get mad at me when I say if you have the spells and traps, it hurts the deck. And they say, well, it's hard to out the spells and traps. No, it's not. It's even easier if you're playing Runic, and Runic banishes so they can't cycle their cards as much, and it's everywhere. So until it goes away out of the format, this deck is going to be C tier. Next we have Burning Abyss. This guy banishes, hurts BA. This banishes from the deck, hurts BA. This can... Sword Soul can do all kinds of things against the BA matchup. All these guys, great BA matchup. In fact, I'm actually going to move BA down below Eldritch. Unchained, meh, C tier. Ecclesia, Dogmatica Engine, C tier. Eldritch, C tier. And that is because it is pretty easy to out it. It's mainly a back row dependent deck at this point. The Jowgen version of Runix, the spellbook version of Runix, easiest time against this deck. Established Jowgen, and that monster just never going to see the board. Also with the floodgates that we have, and just other decks getting things back, and what else is in the meta above it, it really has a hard time. I feel like generic zombies plus a little bit of Eldritch is much better than just trying to run pure back row dependent Eldritch. Same logic pretty much for trap tricks, and there's a ton of back row removal. Plus everyone is running Cosmic Cyclone to out the Runic Field spell, and being able to banish your opponent's back row for Eldritch can really put them at a disadvantage, because then they can't use the Banish from Grave effect to have consistency either. So the deck hurts a little bit. Next we have Spiral. Spiral is actually up a lot higher than it was historically because Spiral actually has a better matchup against certain decks this format. I do feel like Spiral deserves its spot in C tier and is pretty much out of the doo-doo tier for the time being. Yang seeing anything with how graveyard dependent they are and just what's above them. Even Yang Zing Sword Soul, I feel like I've even given too much credit to putting it that high. I'm actually gonna move it back there. Maikashi Bone Tower FTK, it's a thing. Much better mill out decks than this, but it's a thing. Six Samurai Rongo Bongo Shenanigans, it's a thing. Dark Magician, good luck keeping a board this format, but if you can, C tier. Kind of the same logic for Altergeist, good luck keeping a board, but if you can, then you might win the game, C tier. Just covered Yangzing. Lunalight, C tier. Lunalight Tri-Brigade, probably a little bit higher in C tier. Cyber Dragons, C tier. The deck just gets clobbered by most of the stuff above it. It's not the worst. It can do Cyber Dragon things. Doesn't suffer too much from stuff being banished. There's even cards that recycle things from banished from Cyber Dragon, so C tier. Cyber Dark Cyber Dragon, slightly better variant of Cyber Dragon normally. I feel like in this format it's actually the worst one because getting your stuff banished actually hurts more, and not being able to do things from graveyard with the deck hurts Cyber Dark even more than regular Cyber Dragons. So Ice Jade out of doo-doo and into the C tier. They finally got Ice Jade Curse. Deck's decent. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. But being a back row floodgate dependent deck, a little bit hard. And like I said, everybody is running back row removal because of Runic. Like I'm seeing Cosmic Cyclone everywhere, almost every game I play. Speedroids and their negate board. C tier, not terrible, but a lot of their combo pieces are going to get banished in the Runic matchup. Good luck playing into the Dragonlink board or the Emancipator board or even the Herald board at this point. So, C tier. Heroes, pretty much same logic. If you do go first with Heroes, and you go first with Heroes and establish Dark Law and keep the Dark Law against Runics, you're going to have a good time, but it's kind of hard to do those things. So C tier. Buster Dragon, even with Buster Dragon going to 3 and doing Buster Dragon things, it's too slow. Its pieces get banished easily because of Runics. I do feel like it's probably better than Heroes and better than... Yeah, let's actually... 3 Buster Dragons makes a lot of difference. So let's actually move them up there. But yeah, it's kind of like like middle-ish C tier. Machine Toolbox, lower C tier. Combo pieces are easily banished. Combo pieces are easy to get around at this point, and it's just kind of overall. I'm actually going to move it down. Trickstar. Trickstar can still burn you and do Trickstar things even under Runic. Trickstar can still burn you and do Trickstar things under most of the decks above it. Playing into this board, you're probably going to lose. Playing into this board, you're probably going to lose. So it is kind of fragile, so it is lower C, Ascent of C. True Draco, I don't know how you would play this deck when Flow exists, because Flow is just better True Draco, basically. Next we have Spellbooks. They're getting back Judgment. Spellbooks, even with 2 Judgment, if it's pure Spellbooks, it's still the Ascent of C tier. If it's Spellbook Runic, you better believe it's up there in A tier. You can cycle so fast with your Spellbook cards. You can turn dead hands into great hands. You can dig and dig and dig and deck thin like no other. It is like a match made in heaven for Runic, and giving us 2 Judgments. Ooh, I'm fine with that. Plus, why not run the extra Judgment if you're going to be able to have 2 card demise being semi-limited anyway? And so next we have Arrow Mage. Arrow Mage is basically hot doo-doo at this point. It is going to sit... Actually, we're going to move it down to the doo-doo tier. It's back row dependent as fuck. And then next we have... Damn, I can never get the name off the top of my head. Nordic. Next we have Nordics. Rounding out our C tier. And then a Pooper tier, because these decks cannot perform, get completely clobbered by everything above them, Terrible Runic matchup, terrible Dragon Link matchup, terrible like everything matchup with the A tier. Aeromage, Springans, Plunder Patrol, Skull Servants, Chaos, D Heroes, Blue Eyes, Ripperoni to my precious Insectors, but getting that Hornet banished off of Runix is a kick in the teeth. Red Keepers, Evil Eye, what's it called? Glad Beast. Let's move my fat ass real quick. There we go. Glad Beast. Cubic, Exodia, Nurseburn, and UA. And Exodia and Nurseburn, real quick. If you play against Runix, you might as well have the auto lose button hit against you because your pieces are going to get banished and you will be fucked. And that is it for this video and this tier list. I hope that you guys enjoy it. Agree with me or disagree with me below in the comments. Leave a like or dislike. Subscribe if you want more Yu-Gi-Oh! Or gaming content. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.